Now we're on to the sheath, and for this project, just for the sake of, I can knock a Kydex video out and then we'll do a leather video later, we're going to do Kydex. And what is Kydex? It is a thermoplastic, and if you have ever been arrested by the police, you may note that their guns have a really cool plastic case that clicks in and out, keeps it secure. That is exactly what this is. So basically the concept is, it's a sheet of plastic, you get it hot, which not too hot, but get it hot enough it'll get nice, soft, pliable, and then we can press it around the knife and you get a cool form molded sheath that, if you listen carefully, clicks in and out, and it's really nice and secure. So there is a downside to Kydex. Everything in life is a trade-off, so in this part of the process, the downside is Kydex is really meant for working stuff. You're going to get a lot of scratches, wear and tear from the plastic because bits of dust, and especially here in the shop, we got to be really careful and clean them out really well. Any kind of abrasive from the process of working it, or hell, just the dust floating around in the room and some metal gunk, if that gets in there, you're going to have some really bad scratches on your blade. And you're either going to have to remake the sheath because the little bit got embedded into the plastic and now it's on the inside, you'll never be able to get it, or you'll have to refinish your knife, and it's just an issue. So that's the downside to Kydex. The other thing I don't like about it is it's plastic. Like, it's cool plastic, but it's plastic. So I spent all this time working on this really nice knife that I'm super duper proud of, and then I'm gonna wrap it up in plastic, which I'm not super thrilled about, but it does look cool, and there are very neat people out there doing some incredible things with the Kydex. One person in particular, I don't know if it's one person, but one thing I've seen making cool sheaths is Tactical, T-I-E, Tactical. They do a two-part leather Kydex sheath that's kind of like this, but instead of having this just folded over click lock like I have, they actually have a two-part system that comes in and wraps around and click locks. So I would totally be making those right now, other than they're the only people I've seen do it, and etiquette on the internet and just from making stuff says I'm not going to steal that from them because that's their thing right now. So I would also appreciate some courtesy. If you like my videos and you like my work, don't steal them. You want to make something I made, send me an email, get some permission first. Worst case scenario, you're going to do a bad job and I'm going to make fun of you for it. But other than that, I'd be really pumped to see what other people can do with my designs. So keep that in mind when you're working with anything. Don't steal stuff from people. If you find something you like, reach out and ask them. On the other end of craft stuff like this is a normal person. So a little email goes a long way. We're going to get set up. I don't have the most professional Kydex setup in the world, but I think that's good because you probably don't either. I'm going to do this in a press, and we're going to do a fold-over type sheath. I don't think that this tan piece is quite long enough. It might be. I think we're going to give the tan piece a shot. But if it doesn't, then we ruined it, and you'll be seeing a black sheath come out. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven. The internet says 300 degrees for the Kydex. I like to get it a little bit hotter, and I think it helps to transport from the oven to your press. And I'm going to use my heat treating kiln because it's not hot today, and I can put something like this in there fairly easily, and it's right next to my vise. But a toaster oven or a heat gun, a hot plate, a whole bunch of stuff will work for this. I just happen to have a kiln right next to the vise, so that's what I'm going to use. You will see my press. It's not very impressive, but it's just some plywood with a fatigue mat, like a yoga mat or something thick like that, that I glued, and I have draped a cloth in there, and you'll see why. But they do sell professional Kydex foam. I would recommend it if it's something you're going to do all the time. I don't do Kydex a whole lot, so my crappy fatigue mat works for what I need it for. So I'm going to go ahead and start to fire this up, and we'll get going. Just to give you a heads up before we do this, because when I take the Kydex out of the oven, it's hot, and I have a limited amount of time to bring it over and put it in the press. So I'm going to show you, the press is just cloth in between two pieces of plywood with some foam. This did have texture on it. We sanded all that off because we found that the texture was actually imprinting into the Kydex. So it's something to be mindful of. But it's these two pieces in a vise. It's pretty simple. And the way that it works, step around. The foam and the sheet work together to catch the knife. As we get the Kydex, we'll push it around, hold the cloth, and the cloth will center the blade and the Kydex at the bottom, and then we'll close it together. This is a two-person job, and move it over towards the vise and clamp it shut. So it will form with the foam around the Kydex, and we should have a really nice, perfectly fitted sheath, or at least the beginnings of. And it's a pretty fast process. You have to work with it pretty quick. This is one of the few occasions that I do wear gloves. It's cooking in the oven right now at 340 degrees or something like that. So I'm gonna walk it over to here and throw it in the vise, and we'll get going. Kydex knife. Put it in and get it out of the way because we can always take it off. Can't put it back in. There, centered. Give it a squish. Top clamp. And grab one more for right here. Don't want to do it too tight, or you'll have problems getting it in and out. And also, you gotta make sure it's super duper clean at this point. Because if not, you're just smashing whatever little particle you got caught in your Kydex into the Kydex, and that's gonna cause scratches. So we'll let this cool down for a minute. I do want to get it out while it's still warm, so I can pull the knife out, and then we'll start to shape it so it can actually come in and out of the Kydex easily. We've got the Kydex out of the press now, and as you can see, we have a formed shape that this does kind of come in and out of, and because there's a separation here, I can pull it in and out. But the objective is going to be to put eyelets in here to keep it tight so you can't take it out, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. Now, ideally, I would have liked to have had this fold over a little bit more perfectly in the middle, or at least have a longer piece that it wouldn't matter if I had to cut off a bunch of extra. This stuff is not very expensive. So if you need to make a little waste to get a good press, then oh well, you know, you're out $1. So the next step, which might be a step before this for someone else, is to go and kind of draw this pattern out. What you could do is, if you had a knife that you were going to make a million Kydex sheaths for, you could go ahead and make a paper pattern like you would for a sheath, a leather sheath, or anything else that you would need to sew or stitch back together. You could have a pattern for that, and you just, on the previous side, cut out an oversized bit on the bandsaw, and then you have your pieces ready to go. But starting with a rectangle here, so I'm going to say here's my thinnest part, so I'm going to kind of trim along here. Blade starts to curve a little bit, and this is super rough. I'm just going to whip this off of the bandsaw, and then I'll kind of get my finesse points with the sander. I like to work this part a little bit more towards the end. It's really important to make sure that you get your choll area and all these. This part is what actually locks the knife in place because it's tapered from here on out. So make sure you don't eat into any of that, but then you don't want this obnoxious area up here either, so you can't grab it. So we'll just kind of pretend like that's going to continue at least up to there. And then it'll have kind of an arc like that. I might end up trimming some of this off. Well, yeah, I gotta find out. We've just cut it out on the bandsaw, and I trimmed up everything on the disc sander just to get it at least on a straight line. And then I used the small wheel on my flat plate on the bottom to kind of give that a nice round radius. And you gotta be really mindful when you're sanding the openings, or even hell up here too, because as you sand stuff, the abrasives break off your belt or your paper, and then they're going to accumulate in here. Now at this point, it's cooled off, it's not like going to receive anything anymore, it's pretty resilient. So anything that gets stuck in there, as long as we can split this open still, and if you sand it with a high enough speed, you'll actually melt this together, so try to avoid that. As long as you can open it, you can clean it to a degree. And the way that you clean it is flood the inside of it with WD-40 or some kind of oil, because that'll help lift everything out and wash it out. I kind of forgot to mention, it's very important that you have a hole somewhere in the bottom. You could even drill holes here for aesthetics and it would actually work. What that does, if there's any kind of moisture that collects in your sheath, just if you're out walking around and it's damp and humid, or your knife gets gross and you put it back in the sheath without wiping it off, and that makes you a jerk, what's going to happen is the liquid's going to just accumulate in here because it's super tight and it's waterproof. So as long as you got a little drip hole at the bottom, we're in business. Mine conveniently made its own hole. So there's methods too, and I would suggest looking up other people. Gavco has a great Kydex video. He's who I got my first experience with it from, and he has a cool method of taping the stick on the end, and it does it all for you. I found that the blue tape will melt if this is too hot, and the blue tape's cool because it does add a buffer layer, which means this isn't skin tight, so it does come in and out a little bit easier. But if your blue tape melts to the inside of here, it is a pain in the butt to get it back out again. So I've been doing it like this. I haven't had too bad of a result. I don't have any scratches on here yet. So we're going to carefully clean up the inside. All these burrs, it's all going to get scraped off with a knife, and the back edges are going to get hand sanded. So I will come back when I got a little bit more to show you. We have to drill holes for the eyelets still, and then this whole area in here needs to get shaped, and I'm gonna clean it up before I start ramming the knife in to make sure it fits okay, because I don't want to scratch up the blade or the handle. So I got everything trimmed up with my little knife here and skimmed out the inside enough that I could get the knife in. So once I did that, I decided I needed to take a little bit more off of here, and now you can hear it starting to get that classic click. So I need to seal this part up a little bit more so it's nice and tight, but the problem is once that's in there tight, the knife doesn't want to come out. Well, what we're going to have to do is put eyelets in here, which is not only going to keep the Kydex together, but it's going to add all the options for attaching it to whatever you want to attach it to. Also, when I get it tight and closed, the knife will go in a little bit, but then it won't go anywhere past there. Your plunge lines are going to start to stop the blade from actually going in. So once we've got it sealed tight, I'm going to heat this part up a little bit, just enough to get it molded, and then I can flare out my sections with my hand, or something like this, just to work it out. And after that, once it's still warm, you jiggle this in and out a couple times, and that will help form its own locking mechanism. Then after that, basically I'm just going to push this part up so you can grab hold of the knife and go, Kydex will go flying off, and you got a badass knife in your hand. So I got all the edges rounded out. It's just done by doing it by hand with some sandpaper, and then I like to just really, really lightly buff it with the white compound on the white wheel. just for a second. You don't want to melt the plastic, but even this was just done at 80 grit, and then I put it on the buffer, and it's seamless. Nice and smooth. I always laugh when I show people, like a new person, or I'm talking to somebody, they don't know me. I'm like, oh, you make knives, and I pull one out and I show it to them, and they'll see this, and they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And they're like, oh, where'd you get this plastic sheath? And I'm like, I made that. They're like, no, you didn't. It's just plastic, but I guess the really nice clean lines on it and the fact that it's thermoformed is just impressive to people. So getting a really good clean edge on this is not very hard, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have them. So the next step, we're going to set these eyelets in. We're going to have to drill a corresponding hole. In my case, it's a 1/4 inch. It could be different for your eyelets, depends on what you have. I mean, I'm just going to kind of put them everywhere. The more of these you have, the better. I don't really, I don't know, I don't tie these things to anything. I don't walk around with like a sweet marine backpack or anything, but the more eyelets you have, the more opportunities you have to attach it to something. And plus, the more you can cram on there, the better. Come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and whatnot. I've got these brass ones. Those are going to work for me. So I'm going to go drill holes wherever I feel like they look good. I'll mark something with the Sharpie. And this is the tool you use to set it. There's a bottom piece that it goes into, so this round area of the eyelet can sit into the bottom of the piece, and then it is flared in a circular hammering motion to look like the finished side when you're done. And that's pretty basic and easy, so I won't really cover that. I'm sure you know how to hit shit with a hammer. So I will get the holes and the eyelets in there, and then at that point this sheath won't fit anymore. So we will figure out how to get it to click in and out, and we'll form the lock and everything next. Here we are. Everything is riveted or eyeletted. Knife is ready to go. But wait. Yeah, I mean it kind of fits in there, but not very well. So what I'm going to do next is put this under some heat so I can flare this receptacle part out a little bit. Now there's a couple ways we can do that. Ideally, a heat gun would be the best tool for this job, but I was borrowing one for so long that I never acquired my own heat gun, and now that I have a different shop, I don't have a heat gun, and that's okay. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. A less smart way would be a blowtorch. You could totally do it. The only problem is, and you gotta watch out for this in the oven too, is if you get it too hot, you'll melt the Kydex, and then you'll get these weird shimmery parts on your otherwise smooth finish. So I'm going to just kind of stick this back into the oven, just this part of it, so this will get a little bit warmer and more pliable, and then I'll come back here and smush it around, and we'll get it to be perfect. Alright, we got it hot. We're going to work quick. I'm going to press it right behind to make sure it's nice and tight. At the same time, I try to keep this section flared. The tighter you can get it in there, the better it's going to lock. We'll flip this up while it's still got some heat. We'll have a nice finger push. Make sure it's centered. Getting a little warpy here. It's okay. So it needs to come out some more. Still got a minute. You can keep working this stuff until it cools down, and then it's going to be hard as a rock. Alright, that feels pretty good. Feels too good. Alright, so I got it in there too tight. I'm going to heat it back up again. I had to have an emergency hop-off camera reheating, but I got it. So basically, this is where the heat gun would come in super handy. If you could just apply heat to this area right here, make your life a lot easier, and you wouldn't be covered in sweat like I am from standing in front of a forge. So we now have a locking Kydex Sheath, which is very easy to withdraw, and it clicks back in. Okay, so basically all that's left now is to install my maker's mark, which is pretty easy. Just put it in there, a little bit of glue, and we're good to go. Got a really nice bushcraft hunting knife, survival knife, whatever, fixed blade. Ah, look at that. I don't know if anybody can see, I've already got some withdrawal scratches on my knife from this. I know I didn't have anything stuck in there because I cleaned it really well. One way to get rid of that would be to heat this area up again and then just kind of twist the knife back and forth, and what that'll do is it actually creates enough space in there that it won't rub on that area anymore. So, alright, it's always a little fine tweaking here and there, but that is that for this project. Kydex Sheath, full tang carbon steel knife with Hamon, double dyed burl handle, true stone, and G10 liners, tapered tang, the whole 9 yards, jimping, swedge. This is as much stuff as I could think to cram into one video. I didn't want to spill all the beans because I hope to make more videos down the line. So if you enjoyed this, cool, thanks. Subscribe, tell your friends. I like making stuff and getting around to doing the videos. Hopefully I did a good job. If I didn't, you know what? Go look at someone else's YouTube, or you know what? Make one yourself, and then I'll come and harass you. How's that sound? Okay. So I'm gonna go out and try out my new knife. Got some cool stuff up. Take off my reverse O.J. Simpson gloves. And alright guys, so thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck in the future. Have fun making knives.